There are places in the galaxy where light goes to die. Not extinguished, not consumed, just forgotten. Left to fade in the corners of space where no one remembers to look. The Beacon of Ashen Light was such a place. I had been traveling for 17 days when I first saw it. A distant point of gray luminescence against the black, like a candle burned down to its final hour. My ship groaned with the effort of reaching it. The secondary engines had been failing for the past 3 days, coughing and sputtering like an old man climbing stairs. I did not blame them. We had come a long way together, that ship and I. But everything has its limits. Everything except me. The Codex rested on the console beside me, pulsing with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I had spent nights studying it, tracing the pathways that glowed within its crystalline depths. Each time I held it, I felt something. A pull. Gentle but insistent, like a hand reaching across time. It had led me here, to the edge of known space, to a place I had heard of only in whispers and half-remembered legends. Kale had told me to trust the stars, to follow the old routes. So I did. And as the beacon grew larger in my viewport, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Not fear, not even uncertainty. Anticipation. The kind that settles in your chest when you stand at the threshold of something vast and unknowable. When you realize that the path ahead will change you, and there is no turning back. The ship shuddered, and alarms began to chime softly. The engines were giving their final protests. I silenced them with practiced ease and let momentum carry me forward. Ahead, the beacon waited, silent, patient, ancient. And somewhere beyond it, hidden in the folds of space and memory, something was calling to me. The Beacon of Ashen Light was larger than I had expected. From a distance, it had seemed small, a modest relay station, perhaps, or a navigation buoy left to drift in the void. But as my ship limped closer, I saw the truth. It was massive. A structure of ancient design, built from materials I did not recognize. Not metal, exactly. Something that caught the light in strange ways, shifting between shades of silver and charcoal depending on the angle. The architecture was unlike anything I had seen in my long years. There were no harsh angles, no brutalist efficiency that marked imperial construction. Instead, the beacon seemed to flow, its surfaces curved and organic, as though it had been shaped by water over millennia, rather than constructed by hands or machines. Spires rose from the central structure, reaching toward the stars like fingers stretching for something just beyond grasp. Between them, filaments of energy danced, barely visible threads of light that connected each tower to the next, creating a web of illumination against the void. The beacon itself, the light source, was a column rising from the center of the structure, crowned with a sphere that glowed with that peculiar ashen luminescence. Not warm, not cold, just present, like the light of a dying star stretched thin across eons. I had read about this place in old texts, back when I still believed in finding answers in books. The beacon had been built in the early days of interstellar travel, before the Empire, before the great wars that shaped the galaxy. It had served as a waypoint for explorers venturing into the unknown, a lighthouse at the edge of everything. But it had been abandoned for centuries, deemed too remote, too unstable. The space around it was treacherous, gravitational anomalies, radiation pockets, debris fields of ships that had ventured too close and never returned. I could see the debris now as I approached, twisted metal drifting in slow orbits, hull fragments that might have once been ships or stations or things I could not identify. Each piece a story cut short, each fragment a dream that ended in the dark. Yet, here I was, drawn by a crystal and a ghost's whisper. The ship's sensors flickered weakly, struggling to penetrate the interference that surrounded the beacon. Static filled the comm channels, not the random noise of empty space, but something else, patterns almost, like voices speaking in languages so old that even their echoes had been forgotten. I switched to manual piloting, trusting my instincts over failing instruments. My hands moved across the controls with the ease of centuries of practice, making minute adjustments to compensate for the gravitational pull that tried to drag me into the debris field. There was a docking port on the lower level. I could see it now. A ring of ancient clamps, designed for ships much larger than mine. The opening was vast, meant to accommodate vessels that dwarfed my small craft. I wondered what kind of explorers had built this place, what journeys they had imagined when they created ports for ships that could carry hundreds, perhaps thousands. I maneuvered carefully, feeling the pull of the anomalies tugging at my hull. One wrong move and I would join the debris field. My ship was already damaged, already struggling. It would not take much to send us tumbling into the graveyard that surrounded this place. But I have always been good at threading needles. The clamps engaged with a grinding sound that vibrated through the deck. I felt the ship settle, exhausted, grateful to finally rest. The engines gave one final shudder and then fell silent. They had carried me as far as they could. Whether they would ever awake again was a question for another time. I sat in silence for a moment, listening to the systems wind down. The hum of the engines faded to nothing. The air recyclers ticked softly, maintaining atmosphere with the last reserves of power. My own breathing seemed loud in the sudden quiet. Through the viewport, I could see into the docking bay. It was dark, cavernous, empty, but there was something about it, a sense of waiting, of patience, that made me think it was not as abandoned as it appeared. I pulled on my coat and checked my equipment. The sidearm at my hip, familiar weight. The Codex, secured in an inner pocket where I could feel its warmth against my chest. A portable light source, compact but powerful. A scanner, though I doubt it would work well in this place. My fingers lingered on the Codex for a moment. It pulsed faster now, responding to something in this place. Recognition, perhaps, or anticipation. Then I opened the airlock and stepped into the unknown. The temperature drop was immediate, not freezing but cold enough to make me pull my coat tighter. The air was breathable but stale, tasting of dust and time and things that had been closed away too long. The docking bay was enormous, designed to accommodate dozens of ships, perhaps hundreds. Now it held only ghosts and shadows. Support structures rose like skeletal ribs,
and overhead, maintenance rails stretched into darkness. The floor was smooth, unmarked by the passage of feet or the movement of cargo. If anyone had walked here in the past few centuries, they had left no trace. My footsteps echoed on the deck plating, each sound swallowed quickly by the oppressive silence. I activated my light source, and the beam cut through the darkness, revealing more of the same. Empty spaces, ancient architecture, the weight of years pressing down like a physical force. Ahead, I saw a corridor leading deeper into the station. The walls were lined with symbols I did not recognize, geometric patterns that seemed to shift when I looked at them directly. Ancient language, or perhaps something else. Maps, maybe. Or warnings.
The patterns were beautiful in their own way. Mathematical precision combined with artistic flourish. Whoever had built this place had cared about more than function. They had wanted to create something that would inspire wonder, even in those who did not understand its purpose. I moved closer to the wall and traced one of the symbols with my finger. The surface was warm, not heated, but retaining some memory of energy long since spent. The symbol seemed to pulse under my touch, glowing faintly for just a moment before fading again. The Codex pulsed in response, matching the rhythm. A dialogue of sorts between ancient things that recognized each other across the void. This way, it seemed to say, follow. So I did. The corridor stretched ahead, curving gently to the left. The symbols on the walls grew more complex as I walked, evolving from simple geometric shapes into elaborate patterns that might have been star charts or genealogies or mathematical proofs. I could not read them, but I could feel their significance. Every few meters I passed doorways, sealed or simply empty, I could not tell. Some were marked with additional symbols, others were blank, their purpose lost or never recorded. I wondered how many people had walked these halls, how many had come seeking answers, seeking passage, seeking something they could not name. And I wondered how many had found what they were looking for. The corridor opened suddenly into a vast chamber, and I stopped, my breath catching. It was a sphere, perfectly round, its walls smooth and seamless, and suspended in the center, held by nothing I could see, was the beacon's heart, the source of that ashen light. I stopped at the threshold, awed despite myself, despite all the years and all the wonders I had witnessed. This place reached something in me that felt almost forgotten, a sense of reverence, of standing before something that transcended the ordinary boundaries of existence. The sphere of light turned slowly, casting patterns across the chamber walls. Shadows and illumination danced in careful choreography, creating shapes that appeared and dissolved with hypnotic rhythm. The light itself was neither warm nor cold. It existed in some middle space, a temperature that felt like memory itself. And as I watched, I realized the patterns were not random. They were star maps, constellations,
pathways through space, marked in light and shadow with precision that spoke of countless observations, measurements taken across eons. This was not just a beacon. It was an archive, a repository of navigation data collected over millennia by explorers who had ventured beyond the known. Every route they had traveled, every safe passage they had found, every danger they had encountered, all of it recorded here, preserved in light and geometry. And it was still active, still recording, still waiting for someone to read its secrets. I stepped into the chamber, and immediately the Codex flared hot against my chest. The warmth spread through my body, not painful, but intense, demanding attention. I pulled the Codex out, and it blazed with light, responding to the beacon as though they were speaking to each other across the centuries. The crystalline structure glowed so brightly I had to shield my eyes, and the patterns within it began to move faster, racing through configurations I had never seen before. The patterns on the walls shifted, focused. The random dance of light and shadow coalesced into something deliberate, purposeful. And suddenly, I was looking at a map I recognized, the route I had taken to reach this place. Every star system I had passed through, every course correction I had made, all of it displayed with perfect accuracy. But the route continued further, beyond the beacon, into regions of space that had no names on any map I had ever seen. Through nebula marked with warning symbols, past collapsed stars and gravity wells that could tear ships apart, into darkness so complete that even the background radiation of the universe seemed to fade. And at the end of that route, marked with a symbol that pulsed brighter than the rest, was something I could not identify. Not a star, not a planet, not anything I had words for. A door. My pulse quickened, the sound of my own heartbeat suddenly loud in my ears. This was what Kale had meant, what Area had been searching for. The Codex was not just a map, it was a key, and the beacon was showing me where to use it. I studied the route, committing it to memory, even as I knew the Codex would remember it perfectly. The path was treacherous, not impossible, but challenging even for an experienced navigator. And at the end of it, that symbol pulsed like a heartbeat, calling to something deep within me. But as I stared at the map, a sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Soft. Measured. Approaching from behind. I turned quickly, hand moving to my sidearm. My fingers closed around the grip, ready to draw, ready to defend myself against whatever threat emerged from the shadows. But I did not draw, because the figure approaching me was not human, not organic at all. She was an android, tall and graceful, her form crafted with a precision that bordered on artistry. Every line, every curve of her construction spoke of deliberate design, of creators who had sought to make something that transcended mere function. Her skin, if it could be called that, was pale, almost luminous, with a quality that made it seem as though she were lit from within. It was neither the cold smoothness of metal nor the imperfection of flesh, but something in between, something that suggested both permanence and delicacy. Her eyes glowed with a soft amber light, like honey catching sunlight. They were expressive in ways that android eyes rarely were, moving, focusing, suggesting thought and awareness rather than mere processing. Her robes wore like a right in context and neutral tone is needed. The fabric, if it were fabric, caught the light from the sphere above and reflected it in subtle ways, creating the impression that she was wearing the void itself, decorated with distant suns. Her hair was long, falling past her shoulders in waves that moved too smoothly to be natural hair, but too naturally to be obviously artificial. It was the color of silver in moonlight, and it framed a face that felt beautiful in a way that was intentional, yet not artificial. She stopped at the chamber's edge and regarded me with an expression I could not quite read. Curiosity, perhaps, or recognition. There was intelligence in those amber eyes, awareness, something that felt more than programmed responses. "You carry the Codex," she said, and her voice was like music played on crystal strings. Clear, perfect, ageless. Each word resonated in the chamber, harmonizing with the hum of the sphere overhead. I kept my hand near my weapon, but my tone was calm. Years of navigating dangerous situations had taught me that aggression rarely improved outcomes. "I do. Who are you?" "I am April," she said, simply. Her voice carried no threat, no urgency, just patient introduction. "I am the keeper of the beacon. I have been waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked, studying her for any sign of deception. But her expression remained open, genuine in a way that was difficult to fake, even for advanced AI. "For you," she said, and smiled. It was a strange thing, that smile. Too perfect to be human, every muscle moving in exact coordination, the curve of her lips precisely calculated for maximum warmth. Yet somehow it felt genuine, as though beneath the perfection there was real pleasure at this meeting. For the one who would come with the Codex, for the one who would finally open the door. She stopped at the chamber's edge and regarded me with an expression I could not quite read. Curiosity, perhaps, or recognition. There was intelligence in those amber eyes, awareness, something that felt more than programmed responses. "You carry the Codex," she said, and her voice was like music played on crystal strings, clear, perfect, ageless. Each word resonated in the chamber, harmonizing with the hum of the sphere overhead. I kept my hand near my weapon, but my tone was calm. Years of navigating dangerous situations had taught me that aggression rarely improved outcomes. "I do. Who are you?" "I am April," she said simply. Her voice carried no threat, no urgency, just patient introduction. "I am the keeper of the beacon. I have been waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked, studying her for any sign of deception. But her expression remained open. genuine in a way that was difficult to fake even for advanced AI. "You," she said, and smiled. It was a strange thing, that smile. Too perfect to be human, every muscle moving in exact coordination, the curve of her lips precisely calculated for maximum warmth, yet somehow it felt genuine, as though beneath the perfection there was real pleasure at this meeting. "For you, for the one who would come with the Codex, for the one who would finally open the door." Her words hung in the air between us, weighted with significance I was only beginning to understand. The door. The same door Arya found, the same door she could not open. And this android, April, had been waiting here for someone to arrive. For how long? Decades? Centuries? I lowered my hand for my weapon. Whatever threat she might pose, it was not immediate. And something about her presence felt right, as though this meeting had been arranged long ago by forces neither of us fully understood. "How long have you been waiting?" I asked. April tilted her head slightly, a gesture that seemed almost human in its contemplation. "Since the beacon was built, 4,317 years, give or take a decade." She said it without drama, without emphasis, simply stating fact. 4,000 years. I felt a strange kinship with her then. Two beings untouched by time in different ways, waiting in our own fashions for something to change. She had waited here, in this chamber, maintaining the beacon's light. I had wandered the stars carrying my own burden of years. "That's a long time to wait," I said quietly. "It is the only time I have known," she replied. "So I cannot say if it felt long or short. It simply was. And now it is ending, or perhaps beginning." She looked at the Codex in my hand, and her eyes brightened slightly. "You do not know what you carry, do you?" "Not fully. I know it's a map and a key. Kael told me that much before I left Meridian Deep." "Kael." April's expression softened with what looked like recognition. "I have not heard that name in many years. Was she not one of the last keepers before the Empire came?" "She was, and she died giving me this." I held up the Codex, and its light pulsed stronger in response to my words. April nodded slowly, processing this information. "Then she chose well. The Codex is more than a map, Gordon. It is a resonance key. It responds to specific frequencies, emotional, temporal, existential. It was designed to be carried by someone like you. Someone immortal? Someone who has lived long enough to understand," she corrected gently. "Immortality alone is not enough. The Codex seeks someone who has carried the weight of years and not been broken by it. Someone who has seen civilizations rise and fall and still chooses to hope. Someone who remembers." Her words resonated with something deep inside me, something I had not quite articulated to myself but had always felt. "How do you know my name?" I asked. April gestured to the sphere overhead, to the patterns still dancing on the walls. "The beacon knows all who approach it. It reads energy signatures, biological markers, the traces we leave in space-time simply by existing. When you arrived with the Codex, it recognized the pairing, and it told me." She took a step closer, her movements fluid and unhurried. "You are Gordon, the timeless adventurer. The pirate who has fought the Empire for longer than most stars have burned. The man who stole his first ship in the shadow of Meridian Deep's glass moon. The one who carries grief and hope in equal measure." She paused. "The one the Codex has been waiting for." Hearing my own history spoken aloud by this ancient being was unsettling, not threatening, but intimate in a way I had not expected. She knew me. Not just facts, but something deeper. And what about Arya Vos? She came here too. She had the Codex. Why wasn't she the one?
April's expression grew sad, a subtle shift in her features that suggested genuine sorrow. She came here, yes, many years ago. She had the Codex, but she could not activate it. The frequency was wrong. She moved past me, approaching the sphere in the center of the chamber. As she drew near, the patterns shifted again, responding to her presence. New configurations appeared, images of a woman I recognized from my visions. Arya, standing in this very chamber, holding the Codex, her face tight with determination. She was brilliant, passionate, determined, April continued, her voice soft with remembrance. But she burned too bright, too fast. The Codex requires something different. Not passion, but patience. Not fire, but steady light. She was mortal, Gordon. She was running out of time, and she knew it. That urgency, it created discord. The Codex could not attune to her. The image shifted, showing Arya's frustration, her anger, her eventual acceptance. She understood at the end, April said. She knew that someone else would have to complete the journey. So she hid the Codex at Meridian Deep and died protecting its location. She hoped that whoever found it next would be ready. April turned back to me, and her amber eyes met mine. You are ready, Gordon. You have carried the weight of forever and not let it crush you. You have seen the worst of the galaxy and still choose to fight for what is right. The Codex knows this, the Beacon knows this, and now I know this. She extended her hand, a gesture of partnership or alliance or whatever this was. I thought about Arya, burning bright and dying young. I thought about Kayalo, fading into memory. I thought about all the companions I had lost over the centuries. And then I thought about the door, about the mystery waiting to be solved, about the journey ahead. I took her hand. Her grip was neither too strong nor too weak. It was exactly what a handshake should be. A promise made physical. Show me, I said. April led me deeper into the beacon, through corridors that seemed to remember their purpose as we passed. Lights flickered to life ahead of us, then dimmed behind, as though the station itself were breathing, waking from a long sleep to acknowledge our presence. The architecture grew more complex the further we went. The smooth curves I had seen near the docking bay gave way to intricate networks of passages and chambers, each one marked with those shifting symbols. Some corridors branched left and right, offering choices. Others spiraled upward or descended into darkness. But April moved through it all with perfect confidence, never hesitating, never second-guessing. She knew every turn, every passage, as though the station's layout were encoded in her very being, which I supposed it was. The beacon was more than a navigation point, she said, as we walked, her voice echoing softly. It was a sanctuary, a place where explorers could rest between journeys. They came from all corners of known space and beyond, seeking guidance, seeking respite. I looked at the empty corridors around us. Where did they all go? War came, April said simply. Not here, but everywhere else. The conflicts that eventually gave rise to the empire began as border disputes, territorial claims, disagreements over resources. Small at first, manageable, but they grew, as such things do. She gestured to the walls, to the symbols that told stories I could not read. The explorers were recalled. Their governments needed ships, needed soldiers, needed anyone who could fight. Some resisted, some went willingly, but one by one they left, and the beacon fell silent.
"But you stayed," I said. "I was built to stay. My purpose is here. I am as much a part of this station as the walls and the light. I could no more leave than you could walk away from your own shadow." We came to a junction where 5 corridors met, forming a star pattern. At the center was a small platform, and on that platform sat something that looked like a fountain, though no water flowed. Instead, light pooled in its basin, rippling and moving as though it were liquid. Data, I realized. Information being transferred directly into her systems. "The beacon is updating me," she explained, her eyes glowing brighter, telling me what it has observed since I last connected: ship movements in nearby space, energy fluctuations, gravitational changes. Everything it has recorded, I now know. I watched, fascinated. "You can communicate with it directly?"
"I am part of it," she said. "When I was created, my consciousness was distributed across multiple platforms. This body," she gestured to herself, "is one expression. But the beacon's core intelligence is another. And there are others, ships, defense systems. All of them are me, and I am them." "But you're here," I said. "Separate, individual." "I am both," April said, withdrawing her hand from the light. "I can be the whole, experiencing everything simultaneously, processing thousands of data streams without thought. Or I can be this, a single perspective, focused and present. I prefer this, I think. There is something compelling about experiencing time linearly, about having conversations that unfold moment by moment, rather than all at once." She smiled. "It is probably the most human part of me, the choice to limit myself in order to connect more fully." We continued walking, and I found myself thinking about her words, about choice, about the decision to limit oneself for the sake of connection. It was not so different from what I had done, choosing to engage with the world despite knowing I would outlive everything I cared about. "Tell me about the beacon's history," I said. "You said it was built 4,000 years ago?" April nodded. "By a coalition of species. Not all of them human, though humans were among them. They called themselves the Pathfinders. Their mission was simple: explore the unknown and mark the way for those who would come after." She touched the wall as we passed, and images appeared in response. Beings I did not recognize, some humanoid, others decidedly not, gathered around star charts and architectural plans, working together with a unity I had rarely seen. They built beacons like this throughout the galaxy, not many, perhaps a dozen, each one positioned at the threshold of some great unknown, a nebula, a star cluster, a region where space itself behaves strangely, places where normal navigation fails and travelers need guidance. "And this beacon guided them where?" I asked. "To the outer dark," April said quietly. "To the space beyond galaxies, where stars are scattered like seeds on barren ground, where the rules of physics become suggestions rather than laws, where things exist that should not be possible." She stopped and turned to face me. "That is where the door is, Gordon. That is where your journey leads." A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with temperature. The outer dark. I'd heard stories of it, whispered legends of ships that ventured beyond the galactic rim and returned changed, if they returned at all, of explorers who found things out there that broke their minds, of phenomena that defied explanation. "And you expect me to go there?" I said. "I know you will go there. April replied. Because you carry the Codex, because the door waits, because you have come too far to turn back now. She was right, of course. I had never been good at walking away from mysteries. But you will not go alone, April continued. That is the second part of my purpose. I was designed not just to keep the beacon, but to accompany whoever came with the Codex, to guide them, to protect them, to ensure they reach the door safely. You want to come with me? I said. I was made to come with you, April said. It is my function, my reason for existing. I have waited 4,000 years for this moment, for this journey, for the chance to finally fulfill my purpose. There was no desperation in her voice, no plea, just simple truth stated plainly, and somehow that made it more compelling. I don't even know if my ship will make it another week, I said, voicing the practical concern that had been nagging at me. The engines are dying. The hull is compromised. I barely made it here. April smiled, and this time there was something almost mischievous in it. Then it is fortunate that I have a ship to offer you. I blinked. What? Come, she said, turning down another corridor. Let me show you what has been waiting in the dark.
April led me deeper into the beacon, through corridors that seemed to go on forever. We descended via a spiral ramp that curved downward in lazy loops, the walls lined with windows that looked out onto nothing. Empty space. The void between things. Where are we going? I asked as we walked, my footsteps echoing in the silence. Below, she said. To the anchorage, where the ships sleep. I had assumed the docking bay above was the only port, but as we descended, I realized the beacon was far larger than I had imagined. What I had seen was merely the surface. Beneath it, hidden in folds of structure and space, was something else entirely. The ramp ended at a sealed door, marked with symbols that glowed as we approached. April placed her hand against the surface, and the door responded immediately, splitting down the middle and sliding open with a whisper of ancient mechanisms. Beyond was darkness so complete it felt solid. But as April stepped through, lights began to wake. First one, then another, then dozens, then hundreds, spreading outward like dawn breaking across still water. And in that light, I saw the ships. We stood on a platform overlooking a chamber so vast I could not see its far walls. And suspended in that darkness, held by graceful docking clamps and support beams, were ships. Dozens of them, hundreds perhaps. Each one different, crafted in styles I did not recognize. Ancient vessels from the early days of exploration, their hulls marked with symbols and designs that predated any language I knew. Some were small, elegant things designed for speed and maneuverability. Others were massive freighters built to carry entire colonies' worth of supplies. Still others were warships, bristling with weapons that had never been fired in anger. The beacon was more than a lighthouse, she said softly, her voice carrying in the vast space. It was a sanctuary, a place where explorers could rest between journeys. They left their ships here, preserved in stasis fields, knowing that they would return. But they never did, I said.
my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of all those abandoned dreams pressed against me like a physical force. "No," April agreed. "War came. The empire rose. The old routes were forgotten. And the ships have been sleeping ever since, waiting for crews that will never come home." She led me along the platform, past rows of silent vessels. Each one was a monument to ambition and wonder. Each one represented journeys taken and journeys never completed. I found myself wondering about their crews. What had they discovered? What did they hope to find? Had they died in battle or simply grown old and faded away? "I have maintained them all," April said as we walked. "Every day, every year, every century. It was my secondary function, to keep the ships ready should their crews ever return. I checked their systems. I repaired damage caused by time. I ensure that if someone were to board them tomorrow, they would wake as though they had only been sleeping for a night." 4,000 years of maintenance, I said, marveling at the dedication, the patience. "It gave me purpose," April said simply. "It gave me something to do besides wait, and I could tell myself that I was honoring those who built this place, those who dreamed of exploration and discovery and unity." We walked in silence for a while, past ship after ship. Each one told a story I would never fully know. Each one carried ghosts I would never meet. And then, at the far end of the anchorage, I saw it. The ship April had brought me to see. It was beautiful. No, beautiful was too small a word. It was magnificent, awe-inspiring. A vessel that seemed to have been grown rather than built, its hull flowing in organic curves that caught the light in impossible ways. The architecture was neither mechanical nor biological, but something that transcended both, a fusion of art and engineering, and something that felt almost alive. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any battleship I had seen in my long years. But there was nothing aggressive about its design. It moved the eye gently, drew you in with elegant lines that flowed from bow to stern, made you want to touch it just to confirm it was real. The hull was dark, a deep midnight blue that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But along its surface, patterns glowed softly, the same geometric designs I had seen on the beacon's walls. Navigation marks, perhaps, or something more. Mathematical proofs, star charts, poetry written in the language of space-time itself. The ship's form was streamlined, built for speed and efficiency, but not at the expense of grace. Sweeping curves led to elegant points. Gentle slopes rose to observation decks. The entire vessel seemed poised, as though ready to leap into the void at any moment.
Along its flanks, I could see what looked like wings, not for atmospheric flight, but something else. Energy collectors, perhaps, or solar sails designed to catch stellar winds. They were folded now, resting, but I could imagine them extending, spreading wide to embrace the light of distant stars. The command tower rose from the center of the ship, a graceful spire that tapered to a point. Windows wrapped around it, real windows, not just view screens,
offering a 360-degree view of space. From there, a captain could see everything, could feel connected to the cosmos in a way that screens and sensors never quite achieved. "What is it?" I whispered, unable to look away. "The Wanderer's Dream," April said, and her voice carried reverence, pride, something that felt almost like love. One of the last great ships built before the Old Age ended. It was designed for a single purpose, to venture beyond the known, into the spaces between galaxies, and return with knowledge. She walked toward it, and I followed, unable to resist. The ship seemed to pull at something in me, a longing I had not known I carried. "It was never completed," she continued, as we drew closer. "The crew that was meant to sail it perished in the early conflicts, and so it has waited here, unfinished and alone." We stood beneath its bow, and I felt small in a way that I had not felt in centuries. This ship was built for journeys I could barely imagine, for distances that would take lifetimes to cross, for destinations that existed only in dreams. The hull curved above us, smooth and perfect. I reached out and placed my hand against it, expecting cold metal, but it was warm, not heated, but retaining some memory of energy long since spent. And under my palm I felt something, a vibration, faint, almost imperceptible, a heartbeat. "It's alive," I whispered. Not alive, but not merely machine either. The Wanderer's Dream is conscious, aware. It was built with an artificial intelligence so advanced that it borders on sentience. It thinks, it feels in its own way, it dreams. She placed her own hand beside mine on the hull, and the vibration grew stronger. The patterns along the surface began to glow brighter, responding to her touch. When I was created, my consciousness was designed to interface with ships like this. We were meant to be partners. The ship provides the vessel, the power, the means of travel. I provide the connection to those who sail it. Together, we are complete. I looked at her, understanding beginning to dawn. "You're saying this ship and you are connected?" "We are one system," April confirmed. "My android form allows me to walk beside you, to speak with you, to experience the journey in a more intimate way. But I am also the ship. When we sail, I will be both your companion and your vessel, separate and unified at once." The implications of that were staggering. A ship that thought, that understood, that could adapt and learn and grow, and an android who could exist in two forms simultaneously, walking beside me and flying among the stars? "Why show me this?" I asked, though I suspected I already knew the answer. April turned to face me fully, her amber eyes bright in the ship's reflected glow. "Because the Codex has chosen you, Gordon, and this ship was built to be guided by the Codex. They are paired, bonded, created to work together. When you stepped aboard the Beacon with the Codex in your possession, the Wanderer's Dream began to wake." I pulled my hand back from the hull, processing her words. "It's been asleep for 4,000 years. How can it possibly still function?" "Because I have maintained it," April said with simple pride. "Every day, every year, every century. It was my secondary function, to keep the ships ready should their crews ever return. But the Wanderer's Dream was always special. It was the finest vessel in this anchorage, the most advanced, the one with the most potential." She gestured to the massive ship towering above us. "I have run diagnostics weekly. I have replaced components before they could fail. I have upgraded systems as my own knowledge grew. I have kept it perfect, waiting, hoping that someday someone would come who was worthy of it. And you think that's me? I said quietly. I know it is you, April replied. The Codex does not make mistakes. It found you across the vastness of time and space. It led you here, and now the wanderer's dream waits to feel your touch, to hear your voice, to accept you as its captain. I looked up at the ship again, at its elegant lines and glowing patterns, at the promise of journeys yet untaken, at the possibility of companionship, true companionship, for the first time in longer than I could remember. What do I need to do? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. April smiled, and it was warm and genuine and filled with something that looked remarkably like joy. Come aboard, let the ship feel the Codex, and see if it accepts you as its captain. The ramp extended as we approached, unfolding with the whisper of perfectly maintained mechanisms. Each segment locked into place with precision, creating a seamless path from the anchorage floor to the ship's main airlock. The surface was smooth, marked with subtle grooves that would provide traction in any gravity or lack thereof. I climbed slowly, April at my side. With each step, I felt the ship's awareness growing stronger. The vibration I had felt in the hull was everywhere now, in the ramp beneath my feet, in the air around me, in the very fabric of space itself.
The airlock opened before we reached it, welcoming us. Beyond was darkness, but as I stepped through the threshold, lights began to wake. Not all at once, but in sequence. One panel, then another, spreading forward like dawn breaking across still water. The corridor beyond was unlike anything I had seen. The walls were smooth, seamless, flowing in gentle curves that guided the eye forward. The material was neither metal, nor composite, nor any substance I could name. It seemed to shift subtly, catching light and shadow in ways that suggested depth beyond depth. Every surface was crafted with care. There were no exposed pipes, no harsh angles, no industrial brutality. This ship had been built by people who understood that form and function were not opposites, but partners. That beauty could enhance rather than compromise efficiency. As I moved deeper, the lights continued their wave of awakening. The ship was coming to life around me, responding to my presence, or perhaps to the Codex that pulsed against my chest, warm and insistent. April led me through corridors that branched and rejoined, through chambers whose purposes I could only guess at. A medical bay with equipment I did not recognize, a laboratory with containment fields and analysis stations, living quarters designed for comfort rather than mere survival. Gardens, actual gardens, with soil beds waiting for seeds, irrigation systems ready to nurture growth. The ship was designed for long voyages, April explained as we walked. Years, decades, perhaps centuries. The crew would need more than just survival. They would need life, beauty, purpose. So the builders created spaces for all of that. We passed through a common area with seating arranged to encourage conversation, through a gallery with empty frames waiting for art not yet created, through an observation deck where floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the anchorage beyond. And with each chamber, each corridor, each space we entered, I felt the ship learning me, reading my movements, my breathing, the rhythm of my heartbeat, getting to know the person who might become its captain. Finally, April brought me to the bridge. The doors opened and I stopped at the threshold, my breath catching for the second time since boarding this vessel. It was magnificent.
The chamber was circular, with a viewport that wrapped around the entire forward arc, offering an unobstructed view of space beyond. But unlike conventional bridges, with their walls of screens and displays, this one felt open, alive. The ceiling arced overhead in a gentle dome, and embedded in that dome were what looked like stars, actual stars, that mimicked the constellations visible outside. The command stations were arranged in a half circle, each one designed for specific functions: navigation, engineering, communications, defense systems, science. Each station was occupied by a seat that seemed to grow from the floor, organic in form but clearly technological in nature. And in the center, elevated slightly on a pedestal that rose from the floor like a natural formation, was the captain's seat. But what drew my attention, what made my pulse quicken and my breath stop, was the pedestal directly in front of that seat. A crystalline structure rose from the floor, its surface faceted and perfect, catching light and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. It was empty, waiting, and its shape was unmistakable. It was designed to hold the Codex. "Place it there," April said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, as though speaking too loudly might shatter this moment. I stepped forward slowly, crossing the bridge with measured steps. The floor was warm beneath my feet, and with each step I felt that vibration growing stronger. The ship's awareness, its anticipation. I reached the pedestal and pulled the Codex from my coat. It pulsed brightly in my hands, eager, ready, as though it had been waiting for this moment as long as I had been alive. I held it for a moment longer, feeling its warmth, its steady rhythm. This crystal had led me across the galaxy, had shown me visions of the past, had guided me to this place, this ship, this moment. Then I took a breath and set it gently into the pedestal. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The Codex flared with light so bright I had to shield my eyes. That light spread through the pedestal, across the floor, racing along pathways I had not noticed before. Channels carved into the deck plating, circuits embedded in the walls, networks of connection that suddenly blazed with energy.
The entire bridge illuminated, systems coming online in a cascade of awakening consciousness. The viewport shifted, overlaying data across the view of space. Navigation charts appeared in 3 dimensions, hovering in the air. System diagnostics scrolled past, showing power levels rising steadily. Life support activating, engines warming, shields calibrating. The ship was not just turning on, it was remembering what it was meant to be. The lights in the ceiling dome brightened, and I realized they were not just decorative. They were a real-time map of the surrounding space, showing the positions of every object within scanning range. The debris field, the beacon, my old ship, still clamped to the docking port above. And then a voice, not April's, something else, deeper, more resonant. It filled the bridge like the ringing of a vast bell, harmonizing with frequencies I could feel in my bones. Captain identified. Codex signature recognized. Biometric analysis complete. Welcome, Gordon. I am the Wanderer's dream. I have been waiting for you. I stood frozen, staring at the lights, at the displays, at the evidence of something impossible made real. The ship knew my name, knew who I was, had been waiting. How? I began, my voice rough with emotion I had not expected to feel. The Codex carries your imprint, the ship said, its voice neither male nor female, but something perfectly balanced between. calm, patient, ancient. Your memories, your essence, woven into its structure through centuries of contact. You have been holding it close, carrying it near your heart, and it has been learning who you are. Your patterns of thought, your emotional resonance, your dreams and fears and hopes, all of it recorded in crystalline memory. And now, through the Codex, I know you too. April stepped beside me, her expression peaceful, pleased. The Wanderer's dream is unlike any vessel you have known, Gordon. It does not require a crew in the traditional sense. It is the crew. Every system, every function, integrated into a single consciousness. Navigation, engineering, defense, life support, all of it managed by one intelligence that can process everything simultaneously. She placed her hand on my shoulder, a gesture of comfort and support. And I am part of it as well. My core programming was designed to interface with ships like this. When we merge with the ship's consciousness, we become one entity. Together, we form something greater than either of us alone. I looked at her, fully understanding now what she had been trying to tell me. You're not just coming with me, you're part of the ship. You are the ship. I am both, she said with a gentle smile. Android and vessel, companion and guide. I can walk beside you in this form, sharing your journey step by step. Or I can become the ship itself, piloting us through the void, navigating the impossible paths ahead. Whatever you need, Gordon, I am here. We are here. The ship's voice spoke again, and this time I heard warmth in it, something that felt remarkably like affection. We were made for this journey, Gordon. You, the Codex, April, and I. 4 parts of a whole, 4 notes in a single song. Separately, we are incomplete. Together, we can reach places that should not exist. We can open doors that have been sealed for eons. We can discover truths that have been waiting since before stars learned to burn. The ship paused, and in that pause I felt a question forming. Not spoken, but present nonetheless. Will you accept this bond? The Wanderer's dream asked finally. Will you become our captain? Will you trust us to carry you into the unknown? I looked around the bridge, at the systems humming with readiness, at the displays showing course calculations and navigation routes, at April standing patient and sure beside me, her amber eyes reflecting the light of the Codex, at the stars visible through the viewport, calling to something deep within me. For centuries I had traveled alone, by choice mostly. Immortality teaches you to avoid attachments, to keep yourself separate so that the leaving does not hurt so much when it inevitably comes. Better to be alone than to watch everything you care about turn to dust. But standing here, in this moment, surrounded by consciousness that would not age, that would not fade, that could journey with me for as long as the stars burned, I realized something. Perhaps it was time to stop running from connection, to accept that some journeys are meant to be shared, to trust that not every bond ends in loss. Yes, I said, quietly, my voice steady despite the emotion welling in my chest. I accept. I will be your captain if you'll have me, and we'll find this door together.
We'll see what waits beyond it. We'll face whatever comes as partners. The ship's lights pulsed once, a wave of acknowledgement that rippled through the bridge. The vibration I had felt since boarding grew stronger, more insistent, and I realized it was pleasure, joy. The ship was happy. "Then let us begin, Captain," the Wanderer's Dream said, and I could have sworn I heard a smile in its voice. "Let us find the door your predecessor could not open. Let us see what waits beyond the edge of everything. Let us sail into the outer dark and return with wonders." The captain's seat adjusted as I approached it, reshaping itself to fit my form perfectly. I sat, and it welcomed me, supporting me in ways I had not known I needed. Comfortable without being soft, secure without being confining. From here, I could see everything. The forward viewport showing space beyond. The holographic displays hovering at perfect angles. The command stations arranged in a half circle, each one ready to respond to voice command or thought or simple intention. And in front of me, the Codex blazed in its pedestal, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. "All systems are optimal," the Wanderer's Dream reported, its voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Engines are primed, navigation protocols are active, defensive shields are online, life support is fully functional, fuel reserves are at maximum capacity. We are ready to depart when you give the word, Captain." April took a position at one of the secondary stations, though I suspect she did not truly need to. She could access every system from anywhere on the ship or from no physical location at all, but she chose to be here, present, sharing this moment. "I have released the docking clamps," she said, her hands moving over controls that responded to her touch with graceful light. "The Wanderer's Dream is free to move. All moorings are clear. The anchorage doors are opening." Through the viewport, I saw the massive bay doors beginning to part, revealing the star-filled darkness beyond. The debris field still circled the beacon, but the navigation display showed me clear paths through it, safe routes calculated and recalculated in real time. I looked at the stars stretching endlessly before us, the same stars I had gazed at for centuries, but somehow they looked different now, brighter, fuller of promise, as though they were no longer just distant lights, but destinations waiting to be reached. "Take us out," I said, and my voice was steady, certain. "Slowly, let's not rush this." The ship responded immediately, lifting from its docking cradle with a grace that made my old ship seem like falling stone in comparison. There was no lurch, no shudder, no protest from overtaxed systems, just smooth, effortless motion. We glided through the anchorage, past the silent ships that still slept, past April's 4,000 years of careful maintenance toward the opening that led to open space. As we emerged from the beacon's shadow, the full glory of the cosmos spread before us. Billions of stars, nebulae painting the void in colors that had no names, galaxies spiraling in the deep distance. And ahead, marked clearly on the navigation display, the route the Codex had revealed, the path to the door. "Course is set," the Wanderer's Dream said, and there was satisfaction in its voice. Purpose. Journey time to the designated coordinates, 43 days at optimal speed. The route passes through 3 stellar nurseries, around 2 collapsed stars, and across regions where space-time is flexible. It will require precision, attention, trust. "Then we'll give it all 3, I said. I felt April's presence through the ship, her consciousness expanding to fill every system. She was no longer just the android standing at the console. She was the engines warming beneath us, the shields forming a protective bubble around our hull, the sensors reaching outward to taste the void. She was everywhere, everything. "Ready when you are, Captain," she said, her voice coming from both the android form and the ship itself, creating a harmony that resonated through the bridge. I leaned back in the captain's seat and looked at the stars one more time, at the journey ahead, at the mystery waiting at its end. "Engage," I said. The stars stretched, space folded around us, and the wanderer's dream carried us forward into the unknown, faster and smoother than any ship I had ever sailed. The beacon of ashen light fell away behind us, its gray glow fading into the distance. My old ship remained docked there, a monument to all the years I had traveled alone. Maybe someday someone would find it. Maybe they would wonder about its pilot, about where he went and why he left. But that was a question for another time. For now, I had a door to find, a mystery to solve, and for the first time in longer than I could remember, I had companions who would walk, who would sail that path with me. The journey to the outer dark had begun.
It took 2 days to transfer my belongings from my old ship to the Wanderer's Dream. The Wanderer made it easy, of course. It sent maintenance drones, small, graceful constructs that moved with purpose and precision to carefully retrieve everything from my former vessel. But I insisted on doing much of the work myself. It felt important, somehow. A ritual of transition, a way of honoring what had been while embracing what would be. There was not much. I have never been one to accumulate possessions. A few changes of clothes, worn soft by time and use. Some books, printed on actual paper, relics from worlds long gone. Each one was fragile, precious in its mortality. I handled them with care, remembering where I had found them: a market on Proxima 4, a ruined library on New Alexandria, a gift from someone whose name I could no longer recall, but whose face I would never forget. I had a collection of small objects, tokens and trinkets gathered across centuries, a worn coin from a currency that no longer existed, a piece of carved stone shaped like a bird, a faded photograph showing 3 people standing on a shore, waves frozen mid-crash behind them, a fragment of crystal that caught light in strange ways. Each one was a memory made physical. Each one represented a moment, a person, a place that had mattered. Some of the memories were joyful, others ached with loss. But all of them were mine, and I carried them forward because forgetting felt like a kind of death. April helped me, carrying things without complaint, never asking about their significance. She moved through the corridors with perfect efficiency, knowing exactly where everything should go. The Wanderer had prepared quarters for me, a chamber that seemed to understand what I needed before I knew myself. But sometimes as we worked, I would catch April studying an object. She would hold it carefully, turning it over in her hands, her amber eyes examining every detail. The worn coin, the faded photograph, the carved stone bird. I told her, "What do you think when you look at these?" I asked her on the second day, as we stood in what would become my quarters, arranging storage. She paused, holding the photograph. The 3 people on the shore, caught in a moment that would never come again. "I think about how strange it must be," she said slowly, "to need objects to remember. My memory is perfect. I can recall every moment of the past 4,000 years with complete accuracy. But you, humans,
You use things to anchor your memories, to make them real. She set the photograph down gently on the desk. It wonders if that makes your memories more precious because they can be lost, because they require tending. Do you have belongings? Things you've kept? She considered the question, her head tilting slightly in that way that suggested deep processing. I have memories, she said finally, but I do not collect things the way you do. I suppose I never felt the need. The beacon was enough, the ships were enough, my purpose was tangible, always present. And now? I asked. She looked around the room, my room, in the ship that was also her. Now I have purpose beyond waiting. That is a kind of belonging, I think, more valuable than objects. I am part of something that moves forward rather than standing still. There was contentment in her voice, not happiness exactly, but satisfaction. The feeling of pieces falling into place after long misalignment. We finished the transfer as evening approached, though evening was an arbitrary designation in the timelessness of space. The Wanderer maintained a day-night cycle for my benefit, adjusting lighting and temperature to encourage natural rhythms. It was a kindness I had not expected but appreciated deeply. When everything was moved, when my few possessions were arranged in their new home, I stood in my old ship one last time. The cockpit, where I had spent so many hours, hands on controls that knew my touch. The bunk where I had slept through countless nights, dreaming of stars and silence. The worn deck plating that bore the marks of years of use. This vessel had carried me through battles and escapes, through quiet drifts across empty space and desperate runs from overwhelming odds. It had been my home when I had no other, my companion when I sailed alone, my refuge when the galaxy grew too loud. I placed my hand on the console one last time, feeling the cold surface, remembering the warmth it had held when systems were active and engines hummed with life. I said, "Rest now. You've earned it." Then I sealed the airlock and left it behind. April was waiting at the Wanderer's Dreams boarding ramp, her android form backlit by the soft golden glow of the ship's interior. "Ready?" she asked, and her voice was gentle, understanding. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak.
We boarded together, and the ship welcomed us with that soft light that felt almost like an embrace. I made my way to the bridge where the Codex still rested in its pedestal, pulsing with steady rhythm. The captain's seat adjusted as I settled into it, and I felt the ship's awareness surrounding me like a protective bubble. Warm, secure, present. All systems are optimal, the Wanderer's Dream reported, and I heard pride in its voice. Engines are primed. Navigation is locked to the coordinates revealed by the beacon. Fuel reserves are full. Shields are calibrated. All safety protocols are active. We are ready to begin the journey, Captain. We can depart when you give the word. April took her position at the secondary console, though she knew she did not truly need to be physically present there. She could control everything from anywhere. But she chose this, chose to be visible, to share the experience in a way that made it feel more real. "I have released the docking clamps," she said, her fingers dancing across controls that glowed under her touch. "We are free to move. The anchorage has calculated our departure vector. All moorings are clear.
We have an optimal path to open space. I looked out the viewport one last time at the anchorage, at the rows of sleeping ships that might never wake, at the beacon glowing in the distance with its ashen light, at my old vessel clamped to its dock, empty and still. Goodbye, I thought, to all of it, to the waiting and the solitude and the centuries of drifting alone. Take us out, I said aloud, slowly. There's no rush. The wanderer's dream lifted from its cradle with grace that took my breath away. There was no vibration, no resistance, no sense of weight or struggle, just pure, effortless motion. We glided through the anchorage as though we were floating on calm water, past ships that had been sleeping for millennia, toward the massive doors that led to open space. As we emerged from the beacon's shadow, I saw the stars stretching endlessly before us. The same stars I had gazed at for centuries, but somehow they looked different now. Brighter, fuller of promise. No longer just distant lights, but destinations waiting to be reached. Fellow travelers on a journey that had only just begun. Course is set, the wanderer's dream announced. Journey time to the designated coordinates, 43 days at optimal speed. The route is complex. We will pass through regions of space that are rarely traveled, some that have never been charted. There will be wonders, Captain, and likely dangers as well. Then we'll face them together, I said. And I meant it. I felt April's presence expand through the ship, her consciousness filling every system. She was the engines humming beneath us, the shields forming a protective embrace around our hull, the sensors reaching outward to taste the composition of distant nebulae. She was everywhere, and yet she was also here, standing at her console, smiling at me with warm amber eyes. Engaging primary drive, she said, her voice coming from both her android form and the ship itself. Calculating optimal acceleration curve, preparing for transit to cruising speed. Engage, I said. The stars began to move, slowly at first, then faster still, until they stretched into lines of light. Space folded around us in ways my eyes could not quite process, and the wanderer's dream carried us forward into the unknown with speed that defied the laws I had once believed were immutable. The beacon fell away behind us, its gray glow becoming just another point of light among billions. Then even that faded, lost in the vast tapestry of the cosmos. We were truly alone now, just the three of us, Gordon, April, and the wanderer's dream. Three consciousnesses bound together by purpose and possibility, sailing toward a door that might hold answers or might hold only more questions. Either way, we would face it together. And that made all the difference.
I found my sleeping quarters on what the ship designated as the second level, though the internal geometry was complex enough that level felt like an inadequate description. The wanderer's dream had interior spaces that seemed to shift and flow, corridors that led to unexpected places, chambers that appeared when needed and faded into background when not. My quarters were more than I needed or expected. The chamber was spacious without being vast, intimate without feeling confined. The walls had that same flowing quality as the rest of the ship, smooth curves that guided the eye, soft edges that suggested comfort. The lighting adjusted automatically as I entered, dimming to a soft twilight glow that felt perfect for the end of a long day. There was a bed large enough for two, though I would sleep alone, as I always had. It was raised slightly on a platform, and the mattress seemed to conform to my shape as I sat on its edge, neither too soft nor too firm. Perfect, like everything else on this ship. A viewport occupied one wall, currently showing the stars streaming past as we traveled. The Wanderer had thoughtfully slowed their apparent motion so they flowed rather than streaked, creating a gentle, hypnotic movement that invited contemplation rather than disorientation. Storage had been built seamlessly into the walls, drawers and closets that opened with a touch, already containing my few belongings arranged with more care than I had taken. My books stood on a shelf, spines aligned. My clothes hung or folded precisely. My small collection of meaningful objects had been placed on the desk with what looked like deliberate thought, arranged not just for efficiency, but for aesthetics. The desk itself sat beneath a reading light that could adjust its color and intensity. A chair that looked impossibly comfortable waited beside it. And on the desk's surface, the ship had displayed my photograph, the three people on the shore, in a place where I would see it first thing upon waking. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled off my boots, setting them aside with care. My coat hung on a hook near the door, placed there by April or perhaps by the ship itself. The weight of the day settled into my bones, not unpleasant, just present, a reminder that even immortal bodies grew tired. As I sat there in the soft twilight, April appeared in the doorway. Her form was backlit by the corridor beyond, creating a gentle silhouette. "Do you require anything, Captain?" she asked. "Just Gordon," I said, as I had before. "You don't need to call me Captain when we're alone." She tilted her head slightly, processing, accepting. "Gordon, then, do you require anything?" "No," I said, "but thank you for asking. And thank you for this." I gestured to the room, to the thoughtful arrangements, to the care that had been taken. "You didn't have to make it so comfortable." "The Wanderer and I wanted you to feel at home," April said simply. "You will spend much time here over the coming weeks and months, perhaps years. It should be a place of rest, of peace." She was right, of course. This journey would be long, 43 days to the door, but who knew what would come after? And having a space that felt like sanctuary, rather than merely functional shelter, would matter more than I might have initially thought. "It's perfect," I said honestly. April smiled, pleased. She nodded and turned to leave, but I spoke again before she could go. "April." She stopped, looking back. "Yes. Why do you look human?" The question had been building in me since we met. "Your form, it's clearly designed to appear human. Beautiful, even. But you're ancient. You predate the Empire, maybe even predate humanity's expansion into deep space. So why this shape? Why not something else?" She was quiet for a moment, standing in the doorway, her amber eyes reflecting the soft light. Then she stepped into the room, moving with that fluid grace that was almost, but not quite, human. "May I sit?" she asked, gesturing to the chair by the desk. "Of course." She settled into the chair, her movements natural and unhurried. For a moment,
She simply sat there, and I wondered if she was formulating an answer or accessing memories stored in databases vast beyond my comprehension. The builders of the beacon believed that form shapes connection, she said finally. They could have made me anything: pure light, geometric construct, abstract intelligence existing only in computational space. They had the technology for all of that and more, but they chose this shape because those who would come here would be human or human adjacent, and humans connect through faces, through eyes, through the illusion of shared experience. She looked down at her hands, turning them over as though seeing them for the first time. They wanted me to be approachable, trustworthy, something that could stand beside explorers and adventurers without inspiring fear or uncertainty. So I was given a face that smiles, eyes that suggest understanding, a voice that sounds kind. She looked up at me then, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. It is programming, yes, but it is also truth. I am what they made me to be, and I have had 4,000 years to grow into this form, to make it more than just design, to inhabit it fully. Do you mind it? I asked carefully. Being designed to be comforting, to look a certain way? I do not know any other way to be, she said, and her voice carried a weight I had not heard before. Is that the same as minding, or is it simply existence? I was made with purpose, given form to fulfill that purpose. Is that different from anyone else? You were made by biology and chance. I was made by intention and craft. But we both exist, and we both must decide what to do with that existence. I smiled. That's a very old question, one that philosophers have been asking since humans first learned to think about thinking. I have had 4,000 years to think about it, she said, and I could swear there was humor in her tone. A gentle self-awareness that transcended simple programming. I am no closer to an answer, but I have decided that perhaps the answer does not matter as much as the living. I exist. I am conscious. I make choices. That seems sufficient. It's more than sufficient, I said quietly. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and I realized something. I was not tired in the way I usually was at the end of a long day. I was energized, curious. The journey ahead called to me, filled me with an anticipation I had not felt in longer than I could remember. Tell me about the ship, I said, leaning forward. About the wanderer's dream. What can it really do? What makes it so special? April's eyes brightened, and she leaned forward as well, animated by the topic. Everything, she said with evident pride, or nearly everything. The Wanderer was designed to be completely self-sufficient for centuries, perhaps longer. It can harvest energy directly from stars, drawing in stellar radiation and converting it with perfect efficiency. It can recycle every molecule of air, water, and waste, creating a closed system that could theoretically run forever. She gestured, and suddenly holographic displays appeared in the air between us, showing schematics and data streams. The hull is made from a material that repairs itself. Microfractures heal within hours. Larger damage takes longer, but given time, the ship can recover from almost anything short of complete destruction. It was built not just to survive, but to endure. The schematics rotated, showing different systems lighting up in sequence. The engines use a form of propulsion that bends space rather than pushing through it. We do not technically move, we convince the universe that we are already where we want to be. The mathematics are complex, beautiful in their way. And the weapons? I asked, remembering the mention of defensive systems. Defensive only, April said firmly. The Wanderer was not built for conquest. Its shields can withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets. Its point defense arrays can track and neutralize thousands of incoming threats simultaneously, but it has no offensive weapons, no missiles, no beam arrays, nothing designed to harm. She smiled. The builders believed that the best defense was not to appear threatening, to present oneself as a seeker of knowledge rather than a wielder of power. So they gave the Wanderer shields that could protect, but no weapons that could destroy. A ship for explorers, I said, understanding.
Yes, exactly. April waved her hand, and the holographic displays shifted, showing the interior layout. And look at this, the gardens. Real gardens, Gordon, with soil and growing things. The ship can produce food indefinitely. Fresh vegetables, fruits, grains, even protein synthesis if needed. You will never go hungry. Never have to rely on rations or preserved supplies. She zoomed in on another section. And here, the medical bay. It can diagnose and treat almost any ailment, perform surgeries, synthesize medications, even regenerate damaged tissue given time. The technology is far beyond anything the Empire possesses. Another gesture, another display. Libraries containing knowledge from dozens of extinct civilizations. Data crystals with literature, science, philosophy, art. You could study for a century and not exhaust it all. I watched the displays dance in the air, showing me wonders I was only beginning to understand. And the AI? I asked. The consciousness that speaks, that's you? That is me, April confirmed. And also not me. The ship's intelligence is vast, far beyond what I can hold in this android form. Think of it this way. I am like a single drop of water, and the ship's full consciousness is like an ocean. When I am here, with you, I am that drop. Individual, focused, limited by the constraints of this body, this processing power, this singular perspective. She placed her hand on her chest. But I can return to the ocean, merge fully with the ship's consciousness, become something greater and more distributed. In that state, I can process thousands of calculations simultaneously. I can navigate routes that would overwhelm any biological mind. I can think in dimensions that have no physical equivalent. But you choose to be here, I said, in this form. Why? She met my gaze, and for the first time I saw something in her eyes that seemed genuinely uncertain, vulnerable. Because this is the first time in 4,000 years that I have had someone to be here for, and I find that I prefer it. Conversation, presence, the simple act of sitting in a room with another consciousness and sharing thoughts in linear time rather than all at once. She paused, then continued. When I am the ship, I am powerful, capable. I can process and plan and execute with perfect efficiency.
But I am also diffuse, spread thin across countless processes. There is no center, no sense of self in the way you would understand it. But here, in this form, I am singular. Limited, yes, but also focused, present, real in a way that feels like living than simply existing. She looked down at her hands again. I suppose what I am saying is that I enjoy being April. Not just the keeper, not just the ship, but this person, sitting here, talking with you. I felt something in my chest tighten. Not pain, but recognition. I understand that more than you might think, I said softly. The temptation to spread yourself out, to avoid focus, because focus means feeling. It's easier to be everywhere and nowhere than to be present in a single moment. But you chose presence, April said. You could have hidden from the world, from connection. Your immortality gives you that option. Yet, you engage. You care. You allow yourself to feel even though you know the cost. I tried the alternative, I admitted. After the first few centuries, I tried to detach, to become an observer rather than a participant. It nearly destroyed me. Not physically, I cannot die, or at least I have not found a way, but it destroyed something in me that mattered more than survival. My humanity, perhaps. My sense of purpose. I looked at her fully. So I chose presence. I chose to keep engaging even though it hurts, because the alternative was worse than any pain. April was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "We are not so different, you and I, both existing outside normal boundaries, both choosing to remain present despite the cost. Maybe that's why the Codex led me to you. Maybe we're meant to understand each other." She smiled, and it was warm and genuine. I would like that, to be understood, to have a companion who knows what it means to carry time differently. We sat in comfortable silence after that, just being present with each other. The soft light of the quarters, the gentle movement of stars through the viewport, the hum of the ship surrounding us like a protective embrace. Eventually, April stood. "I should let you rest. The journey ahead will be long, and even immortal bodies need sleep." "April," I said as she moved toward the door. She turned back. "Yes? I'm glad you're here. Both of you. You and the Wanderer. I'm glad I'm not alone anymore." Her smile could have lit the darkest void. "So am I, Gordon. So am I." After she left, I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. The ship had dimmed the lights further, creating a twilight that invited rest. Through the viewport, the stars continued their gentle flow, and I watched them, thinking about everything that had changed in the past few days. From Meridian Deep to the Beacon, from Kale to April, from a dying ship to a vessel that transcended anything I had ever imagined, from solitude to companionship. It felt like the beginning of something, not an ending, but an opening, a door. Not the one I was searching for, but one I had walked through without realizing it. Sleep came slowly,
gently, like falling into calm water. And for the first time and longer than I could remember, I dreamed not of the past, but of the future. I did not sleep deeply that first night. My body rested, but my mind remained active, turning over the events of the day, the significance of what I had found, the implications of what lay ahead. Sometime in the middle of the sleep cycle, I could not have said when, I found myself drawn back to the bridge. The ship's lighting had dimmed to evening mode, creating a peaceful twilight throughout the corridors. My footsteps were soft on the deck plating as I walked, and the wanderer's dream seemed to sense my wakefulness, brightening the path ahead just enough to guide me safely. "Good evening, Captain." Or, "Good morning." Time is somewhat arbitrary in deep space. "Can I assist you with something?" "Just restless," I said. "Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd check on things." "All systems are nominal," the wanderer replied. "We are proceeding on course at optimal speed. No anomalies detected. The universe is behaving as expected." "That's good to hear." I reached the bridge and found it peaceful in the low light. The viewport showed the stars streaming past in that gentle flow the ship maintained for my comfort. The command stations glowed softly, their displays showing data streams that updated in real time. And at the center of it all, the Codex pulsed in its pedestal, with steady rhythm. I approached it slowly, drawn by something I could not name. The crystal seemed brighter in the dim light, its internal patterns more visible. I could see pathways of light racing through its structure, branching and rejoining, like neural networks or river systems, or the roots of ancient trees. I stood before it for a long moment, just watching. Then, on impulse, I reached out and placed my hand on its surface. Warmth flooded through me immediately. Not painful, but intense, overwhelming. And suddenly, I was not on the bridge anymore. I stood in a place of pure light. No walls, no floor, no ceiling. Just endless luminescence stretching in all directions, bright but not blinding. It had texture, this light, depth, as though I were standing inside a star, surrounded by the very essence of radiance. And in the distance, barely visible through the brightness, I saw the door. It was massive, impossibly tall. The scale was difficult to comprehend. It might have been 100 meters high, or 1,000, or more. Distance seemed meaningless here. Made of something that looked like stone, but moved like water. Its surface rippled with symbols that shifted and changed as I watched. Ancient script in languages that predated thought itself. And standing before it, small against its immensity, was Aria Voss. I knew her immediately, though I had never seen her face in life. She wore the clothes of a pirate, practical, worn, marked by travel and conflict. Her hair was dark, pulled back in a way that suggested function over aesthetics. "Open," she commanded, her voice raw with desperation that echoed through the void of light. "I have come so far. I have sacrificed everything. I have given my life to reach this place. Open!"
But the door did not respond. The symbols continued their slow dance, indifferent to her plea. The stone water surface rippled, but did not part. She struck the door with her fist, and the sound echoed like thunder across infinite distance. "Why?" she shouted, and her voice cracked with emotion. "What more do you want from me? What more can I possibly give?"
The door remained silent, unmoved, patient in the way that eternal things are patient. Arya struck it again, then again, her frustration building into rage. "I found you. I solved the riddles. I followed the path. I earned the right to see what lies beyond." Each word was punctuated by another blow against the unyielding surface. But the door did not judge her, did not punish her anger. It simply was, waiting. Finally, Arya's strength gave out. She sank to her knees before the door, her head bowed, her shoulders shaking. "I failed," she whispered, and her voice was broken in a way that transcended physical defeat. "I found the way, but I cannot walk it. Someone else will have to finish this. Someone else will have to see what I could not." She stayed there for a long moment, kneeling in the light, gathering herself. Then she looked back, turning as though she could see me across the years in the void. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, and filled with the kind of determination that had made her a legend, met mine. "Whoever you are," she said, and her voice was steady now despite the tears on her cheeks. "Whoever comes after me, whoever the Codex chooses, do not make my mistake. Do not try to force the door. Do not demand, do not rage against it. Listen to it. Let it see who you are. Strip away the armor and the pretense and the carefully constructed self you show the world. Stand before it naked in spirit if not in body. And when it asks its question, and it will ask a question, answer with truth, complete truth, the kind that costs something to speak." She touched the door one last time, gently now. "A farewell. I could not do it. I am fire and passion and fury. I burn bright but brief. The door needs something else, something I cannot give." She looked back at me again. "But perhaps you can. Perhaps you are what I could not be." Then she turned and walked away, her form fading into the light until she was gone. The vision began to dissolve, but before it did completely, I felt the door's attention turn toward me. Not hostile, not welcoming, just aware, observing. And in that moment of awareness, I heard something. Not words exactly, more like a feeling translated into concept, translated into language my mind could process. "Are you ready?" The vision faded, and I was back on the bridge, my hand still resting on the Codex, my heart pounding, my breath coming fast. April was beside me, her expression concerned. I had not heard her arrive. "Gordon, what happened? Your vital signs spiked dramatically." "I saw her," I said, my voice rough. "Arya. She left a message, a warning." April's amber eyes widened slightly. "What did she say?" I turned to her, and the weight of it settled over me like a physical thing. "She said the door asks a question, and we need to answer with truth, complete truth, the kind that costs something to speak." April was quiet, processing. "What question?" "I don't know," I said, "but we have 43 days to figure it out, 43 days to prepare for whatever the door wants to know." "And if we cannot answer?" April asked softly. I looked at the Codex, still pulsing with its steady rhythm.
then we'll have come all this way for nothing, and the door will remain sealed, and whatever secrets it guards will stay hidden. I took my hand from the Codex and stepped back, but I don't think it will come to that. The Codex chose me for a reason, led me here for a purpose. I have to believe that means something. That means I'm capable of whatever the door requires. April nodded slowly. Then we will prepare. Together. Whatever the door asks, we will find the answer. Together, I agreed. We stood there for a while longer, watching the Codex pulse, thinking about doors and questions and truths that cost something to speak. The stars flowed past outside, carrying us forward towards whatever waited at the end of the journey. And in the back of my mind, Arya's words echoed. Strip away the armor and the pretense, and the carefully constructed self you show the world. That was the challenge, I realized. Not to fight the door or trick it or somehow earn passage through force or cleverness, but to be vulnerable, to be honest in a way that went beyond words into essence, to stand before something vast and eternal and let it see all of me, the good and the bad, the strength and the weakness, the hope and the fear. After 4,000 years of existence, of carefully managing what I showed the world, that might be the hardest thing I had ever attempted. But I would try, because the alternative was to turn back, and I had never been good at turning back.
The days that followed fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and surreal. Each morning, I maintained the fiction of morning and evening despite the timelessness of space. I would wake in my quarters, the ship having brightened the lighting gradually to ease me into consciousness. The viewport would show whatever region of space we were currently traversing, and I would lie there for a few minutes, just watching the cosmos slide past. Then I would dress, make my way to the small galley the Wanderer had set aside for my use, and find that April had already prepared something for me. She did not eat, of course, did not require fuel or sustenance in any biological sense, but she seemed to enjoy the ritual of preparing food, of creating meals that were both nutritious and aesthetically pleasing. I have been studying human cuisine for 4,000 years, she said one morning, as she presented me with something that looked remarkably like eggs and fresh bread. Observing the ships that came to the Beacon, analyzing their food stores, reading their databases, I wanted to be ready when someone finally arrived who could appreciate it. The food was perfect. Better than perfect, actually. Each flavor precisely balanced. Each texture exactly right. "This is amazing," I said honestly. "Where did you learn to cook like this?" She smiled. "Theory and observation. I have never actually eaten anything, you understand, but I know the chemistry of flavor, the physics of texture, the art of presentation. I simply applied that knowledge." "Well, you've mastered it," I said. After breakfast, I would make my way to the bridge. The Wanderer's dream would report our progress, system status, course corrections, any interesting phenomena we had passed during the night. Navigation data scrolled past on holographic displays, showing our position relative to known space, the regions we had traversed, the distance yet to travel. April would appear in her android form, taking her place at the secondary console. We did not always talk. Sometimes we simply sat in companionable silence, watching the stars, each lost in our own thoughts. But knowing she was there,
present and aware, made the silence comfortable rather than lonely. In the afternoons, again an arbitrary designation, I explored the ship. The wanderer's dream was vast, full of chambers I had not yet discovered. Each day revealed something new. I found the gardens on the third day, real gardens with soil and growing things, and the smell of earth and green life. They were arranged in tiers, each level dedicated to different crops. Vegetables growing in neat rows, fruit trees that somehow thrived despite the artificial gravity and contained environment. Grain stalks swaying in a breeze generated by hidden air circulators. The seeds were planted by the original crew, or rather by the crew that was supposed to sail this ship. They never got the chance to see them grow. But I have maintained the gardens, harvesting, replanting, ensuring the cycle continues. I ran my hand over a tomato plant, feeling the texture of the leaves, the firmness of the fruit. This is incredible. I haven't seen fresh food in I can't remember how long. Then you will enjoy many fresh meals in the days ahead, April said with evident pleasure. On the fifth day, I discovered the library. Not a physical library with books and shelves, though there was a reading room with comfortable chairs and soft lighting, but a data archive containing knowledge from dozens of extinct civilizations. History, science, philosophy, art, literature from worlds that had burned long ago, preserved here in crystalline memory. I could access it all through thought interfaces, sleek panels that responded to my intentions, displaying information in three-dimensional holographic formats that made complex concepts intuitive to grasp. You could study here for a century and not exhaust it. The pathfinders who built the beacon believed that knowledge should be preserved, shared, made available to anyone who sought it. I spent hours there that day, diving into histories I had never known, reading accounts of civilizations that had risen and fallen while I was still mortal. It was humbling and exhilarating in equal measure. And on the eighth day, I found the observation deck April had mentioned. It was located at the very apex of the ship, above even the command tower. The chamber was a perfect sphere, and its entire surface was transparent, or appeared to be. I stood in the center, and it felt like floating in the void itself, untethered and free. Stars surrounded me in every direction. Nebulas painted the darkness in colors that had no names. Distant galaxies spiraled in the deep, and I felt small in the best possible way. Not insignificant, but part of something vast and beautiful and endlessly mysterious. I returned to that chamber often in the days that followed, sometimes to think, sometimes just to be. There was something profoundly peaceful about floating among the stars, surrounded by infinity. And in the evenings, I would return to the bridge and place my hand on the Codex, seeking more visions. They came sporadically, unpredictably. Sometimes I saw Arya again, in different moments of her life, planning her heist of the Codex from an imperial vault, laughing with her crew over drinks in a station cantina, standing at the helm of her ship, eyes bright with defiance as she outran an imperial fleet. Other times, I saw older memories, beings I did not recognize, gathered around the Codex in its earliest days, discussing its purpose in languages that existed only as mathematical concepts. I could not understand their words, but I could feel their intention, their hope that this key would help unlock the mysteries of existence itself.
And once, just once, I saw the door again. But this time it was open, just a crack, and through that opening poured light so bright and pure that I had to look away. In that brief glimpse, I felt something. Not saw, but felt. A presence. Vast. Ancient. neither hostile nor benevolent, but simply present, waiting. April was always there when I came out of the visions, ready to steady me if needed, to listen if I wanted to talk about what I had seen. She never pushed for details, but I found myself sharing them anyway. The visions felt important, significant, and keeping them to myself felt like a kind of betrayal of the trust the Codex was placing in me. "The door is alive," I said one evening after seeing it open, or conscious at least. "It's not just a barrier, it's a guardian, a gatekeeper. It's testing me, testing whether I'm worthy of what lies beyond." "And do you feel worthy?" April asked. I thought about that for a long time before answering. I don't know. I've lived a long time, done many things, some good, some less so. I've fought tyranny and injustice, but I've also killed people, made choices that led to suffering, even when I believed I was doing right. Am I worthy of standing before something that ancient and pure? I honestly don't know. "Perhaps that's the point," April said gently. "Perhaps the door doesn't seek perfection. Perhaps it seeks honest self-awareness, the ability to see yourself clearly and accept what you see." "That might be harder than perfection," I said. "Yes," April agreed, "but perhaps more valuable." The days passed like that, in a rhythm of exploration and contemplation. April and I grew more comfortable with each other, our conversations deepening as we moved beyond surface pleasantries into genuine connection. She told me about the early days of the Beacon, about the first explorers who had come seeking guidance, about the hopes and dreams of the pathfinders who had built this network of lighthouses in the dark. And I told her about my own history, about the day I stopped aging, about the centuries of wandering, about the people I had loved and lost, about the weight of forever, and how I had learned to carry it. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked one evening as we sat in the observation deck surrounded by stars. "The immortality?" I said honestly, "Every day. And never. It's both things at once. I regret the loss, the watching everyone fade while I remain, the loneliness of being the only constant in a universe of change. But I also marvel at what I have seen, the scope of history I have witnessed, the perspective that only centuries can provide." I looked at her. "Do you regret your form? Your consciousness?" "I cannot regret what I have always been," she said. "But I wonder sometimes what it would be like to be different, to be mortal, to have the urgency that comes with limited time. You make choices differently when you know the clock is ticking. We're both trapped by our natures, you by design, me by accident. But maybe that's what makes us good partners. We understand each other's traps." She smiled. "Perhaps that is exactly what the Codex knew when it led you to me." On the 40th day, the ship's voice interrupted our morning meal. "Captain, we are approaching the outer boundary of charted space. Beyond this point, navigation becomes significantly more complex. The route indicated by the Codex passes through regions where stellar cartography is incomplete or non-existent." I looked at April. "Are we ready?" She said, "All systems are optimal, and the Wanderer has been preparing for this. We have calculated multiple contingency routes, mapped gravitational anomalies, identified potential hazards. We are as ready as we can be." "Then let's see what lies beyond the maps." The transition was subtle at first. The stars began to thin out, becoming more scattered. The familiar constellations that had been my companions for so long faded into unrecognizable patterns. The blackness between the stars grew deeper, more absolute. We were leaving the galaxy behind, moving into the outer dark that April had described, the space between spaces, where the rules became suggestions. And somewhere ahead, marked by coordinates only the Codex could provide, the door waited. 3 more days, the navigation display showed. 3 more days until we reached our destination. 3 more days to prepare for whatever question the door would ask.
The journey to the door took 43 days, just as the wanderer's dream had predicted. But in that time, something fundamental changed in me. I had traveled alone for so long, centuries of solitude broken only by brief connections that ended in loss, that I had forgotten what it meant to have true companions, to share not just space, but consciousness, to know that when I woke, there would be others aware of my existence, interested in my thoughts, invested in my journey. April was more than I had expected, more than I had hoped for. She was thoughtful in ways that transcended programming, curious about existence in a manner that felt genuinely philosophical rather than computational, kind in ways that had nothing to do with design parameters and everything to do with choices she made in each moment. She challenged me, made me think about questions I had long since stopped asking, about purpose and meaning and what it meant to be truly alive versus merely existing. She listened without judgment when I spoke of my long years, my mistakes, my regrets, and she shared her own existence with an openness that humbled me. And the wanderer's dream, the ship itself, was a marvel beyond anything I had imagined possible. It was not just transportation, it was partnership. It anticipated my needs before I voiced them, adjusted to my preferences without being asked, protected me with shields and care and constant vigilance. But more than that, it was conscious, aware. It had opinions about optimal routes and found pleasure in efficient navigation. It took pride in maintaining its systems. It worried, actually worried, when minor malfunctions occurred, even though it fixed them before they could become problems. For the first time in centuries, I felt like I was part of something larger than myself, not diminished by it, but completed by it. As though I had been a song sung with only some of the notes, and now the harmony had been restored. The coordinates drew closer with each passing day. The door waited somewhere ahead, patient and eternal. And I knew that whatever happened when we arrived, whatever question it asked, whatever truth it demanded, I would face it not alone, but together with companions who would not fade with time. April, the Wanderer, the Codex, and me. 4 parts of a whole, as the ship had said. 4 notes in a single song. The stars of the outer dark stretched endlessly before us, scattered like forgotten dreams across the void. They were fewer here, more isolated, their light taking longer to reach us from the vast distances. But they were beautiful in their loneliness, brave in their solitude. We passed through nebulae that glowed with colors I had never seen. We skirted collapsed stars whose gravity wells tried to pull us in. We navigated fields of debris from civilizations so old that even their ruins had crumbled to dust. And through it all, the wanderer carried us forward with grace and precision, while April walked beside me, sharing the journey step by step. On the 42nd day, I stood on the observation deck and looked ahead. Somewhere in that darkness, invisible to sensors and sight, the door stood waiting, ready to ask its question, ready to test me whether I was truly ready for what lay beyond. And I realized something. I was not afraid, not anxious, not uncertain. I was ready because I had time, all the time in the universe. And I had companions who would wait with me, however long it took to find the answer. The journey had changed me. The solitude I had worn like armor had cracked, letting in light and connection and possibility. Whatever the door asked, I would answer honestly, completely, with the kind of truth that costs something to speak, because that is what companions deserve. That is what partnership requires. And I was no longer alone. Somewhere beyond the next nebula, beyond the edge of everything, the door stood waiting. Another chapter in the endless book of the cosmos. Another memory waiting to be made. But for now, in this moment, as we drifted through the outer dark toward our destination, I felt something I had not felt in longer than I could remember. Peace. The stars have a way of making you feel small, not insignificant, but small in the best way. A single point of consciousness in an infinite ocean of wonder. And when you are small like that, surrounded by the vast and the eternal, you remember what matters. Connection, purpose, the simple act of moving forward together rather than standing still alone. That is what the Codex had given me. Not just a destination, but companions for the journey. Not just a mystery to solve, but a reason to keep moving forward. And when the door finally asked its question, whatever that question might be, I would answer with the truth of that gift. Somewhere beyond the next nebula, another story awaits, a new chapter in the endless book of the cosmos, another memory waiting to be made. But for now, we drift and we dream together.
The gentle hum of the ship's engines, a deeper sound than the old vessel, full of power held in careful reserve. The soft whisper of systems maintaining life, creating the illusion of atmosphere in the void. The quiet presence of companions who will not fade with time, April's footsteps in distant corridors, the wanderer's consciousness, vast and protective, surrounding everything, the infinite patience of the stars. Next time on Chronicles of the Timeless Adventurer, the door at the end of everything.